1. Some background. I work at a pizza shop where it's an unspoken rule if we get an extra pizza, it's fair game for everyone to eat. You can only claim it at the end of the night. There is a girl that is entitled, that was being super negative and mean to everyone. There are 2 other people in the back of the house, one is Liam and the other is John. We were at work last night and it was a good night. Not super busy but not super slow, just the norm. 2 people in the back of house worked doubles and were hungry, so we were all hoping for an extra pizza. I got on the oven to cut pizzas and take them up to the red rack. The rack is red and it's just a place to put done orders. And noticed a large buffalo pizza sitting on the side. I was confused because the order was done and ready to take up, so I asked one of the girls up front about it. She said she didn't know anything about it. Then Liam came back and said, "Guess what? We got a large buffalo pizza!" We were all super excited about this because a buffalo pizza is an amazing pizza that gets eaten in less than 5 minutes. Since it was a large pizza, we could all have a piece, but it was too busy to eat, so we were going to wait until it got slower, then dig into this amazing pizza. Liam came back and said, "Entitled girl took a piece of the pizza and ate it over the top of the rest of the pizza." Yes, the box was opened, and that's disgusting. This is a big no for a couple of reasons. 1, COVID is going on, and 2, Liam is a big germaphobe and won't eat the pizza. I won't eat the pizza because Entitled Girl did this. Others didn't hear about this, but it didn't matter because she took the pizza and hid it from everyone. This made everyone mad, so we started to look for it. About 5 minutes later, Liam found it hidden behind a spot that's not all that good. It had its label. The label tells all the info about it, like who it belongs to, their phone number, etc., and a DoorDash sticker on it. Me and Liam started to plan what we were going to do. Liam said to take the pizza and hide it, but I had a better idea. I told him let's print out another label, grab a DoorDash sticker, and slap them on a large empty box. And that's exactly what we did. It was all set up, all we had to do was wait for the time to strike. A little time later, and it was go time. I grabbed the decoy box and Liam watched my back. I switched the boxes out, and everyone started to laugh as I ran to the back with the buffalo pizza, trying not to be seen by Entitled Girl. When I got to the back, Liam had the oven door open and I put it in. It's a gas oven that was like one at your house. It has a door on it that opens, but nobody knows that it opens. It also doesn't have a window, so you can't see into it. This makes it perfect for hiding things. Even the owner of the pizza shop didn't know it opened, and worked there his entire life. Once the box was secured, we were excited because we just pranked Entitled Girl. Sometime later, Liam's girlfriend, who works there, came back with someone and asked where the pizza went. We asked why, and she told us that Entitled Girl said that Allie could have the pizza. This made us feel bad, and she said that we pranked the wrong person, so we threw away the decoy box and gave Allie the pizza. Sometime later, Allie comes back and starts ranting to us, calling Entitled Girl a number of colorful names. She was now telling Allie that she could only have one piece of the pizza and not the whole thing, so Liam grabs it, hands it to me, I put it back in the oven. Then I proceeded to print off the label and grab a DoorDash sticker, slap them on a new large box and put it where she hid it. I had to put this decoy box with nothing in it right under her nose. She was about 7 feet away from me, and one look to her left and she would have seen me. The prank was back on, and we were all excited again. We started to do our daily cleaning tasks and clean the shop like normal. It was 9 p.m., and the shop was officially closed, so I mopped. Liam finished the dishes, and our manager John was going over our cleaning list, making sure it was all done, when all of a sudden, boom, the decoy box was slammed. Footsteps from Entitled Girl shook around the shop, as loud as can be. She came back with the box open and ran up to John as me and Liam watched. She screamed at John and yelled at him, demanding to know where her pizza was. He knew, but just pulled the best poker face and said, "I don't know," as he shrugged. Entitled Girl then slammed the box on the table and stormed off. She was pissed and we were happy as can be. I followed her, and she left the building. She was off the clock. And as she left, she tried to slam the door, but the main door doesn't slam, and she failed. I talked to everyone up front, and we were laughing at Entitled Girl. Allie said, "I wish I still had that pizza." And I looked at her and said, "We still have it." She followed me into the back, and it felt good to let her have the pizza, but she only wanted one piece. So I gave the rest of it to one of our trainees, who was also happy to get it. It was fun to make Entitled Girl mad, because the entire night she was just being a complete jerk to all of us. Plus, she doesn't know who did it, so that's even better. 2. By some universal coincidence, me and my girlfriend ended up living with another couple in a rented house to split costs. It was a big house, so each couple would have their own bathroom, bedroom, and we shared the common places like the kitchen and the living room. The house was originally rented by a co-worker who, by the time of this story, was no longer in the house anymore. But all the furniture was his, and he gifted it all to me when he left. This other couple was really annoying. They would leave their dirty dishes in the sink with rotten food and only wash them at the weekend. Or leaving their dog to poop all over the house. One time the guy was cooking in torn-out shorts and his underwear was very visible. This was really uncomfortable to my girl. Anytime I talked to them about all the issues that bothered us, they used to change their habits for a few days, and then it was all the same. But the house was rented and they arrived first, so I wasn't able to kick them out. And if I tried, I was afraid of the guy since he is a bad-tempered asshole. The last straw was this summer. It was really hot and these bastards liked the AC at full blast day and night, even when they weren't home. And if I turned it off, they would get mad and immediately turn it on, after telling me they could not sleep without the AC at max. Okay, I did my best to wear a hoodie and sleep with my winter clothes in the middle of the fucking summer inside the house, so they would be comfortable, and for the sake of saving a few bucks in rent money. And of course, the inevitable happened. The electric bill came, and it was 4 times higher than usual. And it was a lot. So I talked to them about how their use of the electricity was out of control, and why we should split the bill $25.75, since me and my girl are almost never home. It turned into a huge fight, and his only argument was that we all used the electricity, so we should all pay the same. He wouldn't listen to my arguments, and there was nothing I could do. I ended up paying the same amount. After this, he and his girlfriend made me pay for their comfort. They started doing a lot of passive-aggressive stuff like throwing out my unspoiled food, while they would leave their rotten food in my fridge, or using their TV at the highest volume while I tried to sleep. I get up really early to exercise before work, so I go to sleep really early. A lot of things like that in a very childish manner, in addition to still leaving on every kind of electrical device in the house while they were out. Then I knew I had to get out of that house. There was no money saving anymore due to the high costs of the bills, so me and my girlfriend started to look for a place for only the 2 of us and our 2 rescued dogs. We found an affordable and comfortable house with plenty of room for our dogs, so we pulled the trigger. We talked to the owner of the previous house about us leaving, and he had no problem at all, so it was all set. We waited until the other couple were out of town for the weekend, and took every last thing we owned out of that house and moved out. I left them without any furniture. I mean, no stove, no microwave, not even a table to eat at. I left my keys at the entrance to the bedroom door and a note that said, "We couldn't bear your attitudes anymore, so we left with our belongings. Have a nice life wasting your own money." The owner of the house, who became a very good friend of mine later, told me that they told him how I took all of their belongings. He knew that they were mine and told them. I wish I was there to see the look on their faces. Have fun eating fast food on the floor, assholes. 3. My husband is a truck driver in the woods. He loads up the logs on the trailer in the woods, and then he drives to the wood mill to deliver. My husband worked for a small company where the owner is so hands-off it doesn't make any sense. His famous last words were, "Do the best you can." Hobby had some trailer issues, so he unloaded and called his boss to let him know he was going to need someone to come and remove his trailer stakes, so he can drive down the road to bring the trailer to get fixed. Now, his boss told him that he was not paying someone to come to remove the stakes. Let me explain. The trailer my husband used. It was 12 feet wide and the stakes were 14 feet high. This was a massive trailer used for off-road use. You're not supposed to drive on the main roads with it. The boss just told him to drive the effing thing to the shop. So hubby mentioned the electric lines and the telephone lines. The boss said, "You'll be fine. You won't touch the lines. Just get it to the shop." His boss had never driven a truck. He just owns them and expects everyone to take care of themselves when there's a breakdown. So hubby said, "Fine, but don't blame me if everyone loses electricity, including yourself." So hubby left the wood yard and started driving to the shop. It was about a 2-hour drive to get from the wood yard to the shop. Before he left, he warned me that we will most likely lose power. I was like, "Well, okay." I was planning on going grocery shopping anyway. So hubby drove by our house. We still had power. About 10 minutes later, the power went out. So I decided I was going to go to town. On my way to town, the power lines were down in front of our old principal's house. He was trying to direct traffic and was trying to figure out who the guy was that was driving the maroon truck. We both hated this man. He should not have been allowed to work with children and teenagers. He used to tell my husband that he would never amount to anything by looking out a window. So I stopped the old principal, was trying to explain that a truck hit the lines, and he was trying to figure out who it was. So I looked him dead in the face and I told him it was one of the students that would never amount to anything, just looking out a window. And I drove on. So the shop was on my way to town, and I decided to stop in and see if hubby and the guys needed coffee, and his boss was there screaming at him because his wife has no power and couldn't go on Facebook. So I watched hubby get reamed out. Then my husband pulls out his phone, showing that the boss told him to drive down and do the best he could. The boss shut up for a moment, let hubby fix his trailer. The utility companies came and repaired and figured out who the truck belonged to. The boss got a bill for over $150,000 to repair the downed lines and broken poles. The reason I know how much the bill was is because he left it on the counter in the office, and I saw it when I went to collect my husband's last check because he was done with the boss's bullshit. My husband was the only driver that he had that would make him money, and hubby always drove the crap nobody else wanted to drive. 4. This happened in 2012. I was working construction for a smaller company. Specifically, I was hired as a compaction technician. Essentially, I would use trucks or compaction gauges to see if the road was properly compacted. But that part was a limited part of my work. To test compaction, you would use a pin, guide, and sledgehammer to punch a hole in the lift, and then use a gauge to measure compaction. I started out with 2 other techs, which was a survey helper, and then the site supervisor's daughter. Of course, she didn't have to do the manual labor part of the job. Since the start of roadwork season involved lots of demolition work, I was assigned flag duty, essentially 12 hours of holding a slow and stop sign. As the season progressed, I was put on culvert installation, doing both my compaction work and normal labor, essentially 2 jobs. Of course, this was a huge pain since I was expected to test compaction, then do normal labor, while also writing detailed reports. On the 3rd job site, I was placed about an hour and 15 minutes from where I lived. You got 2 options: either live in the cabin the company rented or commute in daily. I chose to live out, but eventually they moved us to some shitty portables on site. The portables had no bathrooms, no running waters, no power, and no real amenities. I ended up staying in them for about 2 days before choosing the commute option. Around this time, locals had been hired, part of the contract, and I found out they were getting paid about $2.50 more per hour than I was for half the work. A normal day arrived getting to the shop at 5:30 a.m., driving about an hour and 15 on site by 6:45, working until 6 or 7 p.m., then an hour and 15 home. I was miserable, however I showed up at exactly the time I was supposed to. Here is where 3 different forms of malicious compliance started. First, I stopped doing labor while doing compaction reports. I would run tests and sit down and spend 20 to 30 minutes doing reporting and math before having to run more tests. This pissed off a number of workers, a significant amount, despite this being the core component of my job, and being the only person that could run the gauge. The second was showing up at 5:30 a.m. on the dot. I refused to be at the yard earlier as I was already overworked and not sleeping. The final straw was showing up at 5:30 and the crew van, driven by an employee I despised, left, driving past myself and another coworker. I took a sip of my coffee, thought about it, and drove straight to the competition's shop. I sat there, hard hat, boots, vest, and lunch ready to go. They opened at 7 a.m. and I walked in the door saying what happened and that I needed work. I was on a site within 45 minutes, making $2 more per hour. That day I did not receive an apology, call, text, or anything. No offer of repayment of wages lost, etc. So the next day I was again with my new crew. My previous supervisor called me up, questioning my absence around 11 a.m. I explained what had happened and why I wasn't there. He said he understood, but expected me the following day. No apology, just, "Yeah, that was a shitty thing to do," and a bit of anger towards me. I told him to kick rocks as I was being paid more to do less work. Suffice to say, the old company wasn't very happy with me. But if your employee is willing to leave 2 workers you underpay and demand I do 2 jobs, don't expect me to bend over backwards for you. 5. About 30 years ago, I was 17 and about to head to university. An acquaintance through my parents' church offered me a job working with him, learning to be a pizza chef. Awesome. I'd need money for uni, and I already had a stack of jobs. So working hard was nothing new for me, but being a cook certainly was. My experience with Italian was limited to Pizza Hut, so I accepted that at the start I was a liability, not a help. I started work. And to start with, I worked free. Cool, but when it got to the point about 3 months later that I was opening by myself and taking whole shifts by myself, well, I should be paid. I screwed up all of my 17-year-old courage and confronted the owner, Nick. He huffed and puffed and tried to tell me how terrible I was. But I stood my ground and now I'm on minimum wage. Not bad in my eyes at the time. I worked there for another 3 years through most of my uni degree, often putting in 30 hours contact at uni, 30 hours at the restaurant, and 30 hours of study. It was hectic, but just became the norm. Towards the end, I became a lot more savvy and started researching labor laws, keeping records of my pay packets and end-of-year tax receipts, and realized Nick and other co-owners were screwing me. I wasn't on the correct rate, they weren't deducting tax correctly, and a couple of other accounting oversights. By then, I was working with my at-the-time mate. Let's call him girlfriend creeping dickhead. No reason. It was Sunday night. The place was packed. I had tickets all the way down my line when girlfriend creeping dickhead and I were pumped. We had a new boss who'd just bought into the business and thought he was the king of the world because he was now a restaurateur. A right wanker. But after years of having to stay back to cook pizzas on World Cup nights for the boss's friends, on Christmas, New Year's Eve, etc., I was sort of used to the grandstanding, chest-puffing behavior. The night in question, the new boss would not let me start the second pizza oven. Think a 2-tier oven. I was only allowed the top tier on because it cost too much. So here I am, oven full, 2 pizza chefs running full speed, and we're only falling behind, because one oven wasn't enough, and it was starting to cool down from being so full and open so frequently. New boss gets a couple of tables of mates in. Instead of just asking us to cook some comp garlic bread or whatever, he starts loading up trays himself and putting them in the oven. Not the worst crime, but because he had no idea what he was doing, every 30 seconds he'd open the oven to check them, cooling the oven down even further, potentially ruining the food we had in there and slowing us down measurably. I had the head chef chewing my ass out as his food was ready to go, but my food on the same tickets wasn't. It was hectic and not fun. This garlic bread bandit shit had to stop. New boss, stop fucking with my oven. If you want garlic bread, just ask. I'll get it done immediately for you. What? Huh? You're messing with my oven and you're cooling it down and we're too busy for this shit. Just tell me and I'll make it. Okay. Did he do it? Nope, he kept on. Cue the same conversation another 2 times. The last time I told him I'd blow my stack if he did it again. You see where this is going? He did it again. Now, after being consistently ripped off and abused, so many cookie stories from that place for 3 years, my time was up there anyway, and this was the time to do it. I looked at girlfriend creeping dickhead and said, "Yo, we out of here?" He looked back and simply said, "Yep." We stripped our aprons off in front of the entire restaurant. Pizza Kitchen was in full view of the entire restaurant. Threw them on the bench and told new boss, "We quit. All of this, all these tickets, all the food in the oven you fucked up, and your mate's shitty garlic bread. This is all yours now. Good luck." Then we walked out, got some coffees from the baristas, sat in front of the pizza area and watched him absolutely flounder. He had no idea what he was doing, and there was literally no one else there that could help him. We could see food coming out from the kitchen, but the pizza on the same ticket was taking 20 minutes or more longer to come out. Tables were hopping mad. We could hear the grumblings all around us. I'll admit it was dickish, but undeniably satisfying to behold. That's not the pro-revenge, though. The pro-revenge was that I'd been stealing my timesheet every Sunday night, photocopying it and then replacing it Monday mornings. I'd been doing that for over a year. I'd also told girlfriend creeping dickhead to do it. Monday I walk in and Nick was there and was furious at me. As I walked in, I could see his chubby face turn bright red as he bellowed across the restaurant floor.
"What the fuck do you think you're doing here? Get the fuck out and never come back!"
"Nick, we've got to talk. We can do it here or we can do it in your office, but trust me, you want to have this conversation privately."
"Fine, you come with me then."
Desperately trying to gain the upper hand back, and he storms to his shitty little office out in the back. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit about how he's going to withhold pay and a whole heap of other illegal hot air. "You done? Good. Here, read this." I hand him a printout of an Excel spreadsheet, a stack of photocopied timesheets, and a stack of photocopied payslips. Printed copies of the wage awards, all of which detail the amount he's ripped me off for. "You owe me $6,000. I'll take cash or a check now." Did I mention he and the other bosses had just been simultaneously raided by the tax office? And that they and the business were all on thin ice? Yeah? Bad timing for Nick the Dick.
But I can't afford it. Look, I'll show you my bank accounts."
As he physically starts scrambling to find his bank statements. "Nick, I literally don't give a shit about you, your bank accounts, or your situation. You owe me $6,000. Today. Or I'll take all of this to the tax office, and all of the other relevant government agencies that will be very interested in this. Because, Nick, I have a feeling if you're doing this to me, you're doing it to the other staff as well, huh? As for not having the money, well, again, not my problem. You just bought a new $60,000 Pajero. So if you have to run that down to the car yard and sell it, again, I don't give a shit, but I get $6,000 today." He literally teared up a little, I'm not sure why. Maybe through frustration, rage, or just being screwed by someone he thought way beneath him. But seeing a grown man who's abused you for many years cry at your hands is a pretty beautiful thing to behold as a 20-year-old kid. I got a check that day for my whole $6,000, and yes, it cashed. But the best was walking out of his office with girlfriend creeping dickhead standing there, who deadpan just looked him in the eyes and said,
"Nick, we need to talk."
And they walked in to do the same thing. 10,000 he lost that day. The best part, a few of my friends at the restaurant caught wind of the fact that I had enraged him and asked what it was all about. I let them know how they were being screwed, how to take copies of all their timesheets, and where to find the relevant laws. I know of several other people who did the same thing to him. And that was how I left the hospitality industry and started working in my field of study, never to look back. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, number 59. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Well, only bad thing about this video this week is I now want pizza, but, too late to make pizza. Oh, I just remembered, I think I've got an Amazon package at my front door. I'd scheduled it for Friday, but for some reason they thought, well, of course we'll deliver it 2 days early when he's not ready to deal with it. But, of course, okay, fine. I'll just have to take it in before it gets stolen. Unless it's already been stolen, because it's been sitting there for most of the day. Ah, well, with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.